that they still say film and tape when it's all digital?
Yeah, I know. Because we just got used to it, you know.
Yeah. Roll the film.
Yeah. Ain't nothing rolling.
Show the tape. What are you talking about? Digitize me. This is Reblogatog 9. I don't know why I tell you what it is every week. I guess just to get it all going, you know.
Yeah, episode 9. We're getting there.
We follow along with Mark Rosewater's Tumblr account, Blogatog, and then we regurgitate what we think you need to know. And hope that somebody's watching this.
And hope our editorializing is entertaining.
Yes, that type of thing.
Our editorializing of his editorial. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we break down the stuff that you need to know. So here's the stuff you need to know this week or last week. You should have knew this last week.
Right. If you don't,
it'll be next week when you find out about it. There's a delay in all this stuff,
right?
You know? So
digital.
Anyway, digital. Hey, Mark, if you could rewind time and start Magic fresh, would you keep the basic lands as plains, islands, swamps, mountains, forests? I don't know why I read that. Everybody knows what they are.
Right. I hope they do.
Otherwise, why are you watching this? Or would you choose different biomes? He says he doubted he'd change it. But if he was forced to change one, it would probably be plains.
Right.
Well, there was a follow-up question the next day, and I caught it and saved it for you. Why would you change plains instead of islands? The art isn't much islands anymore. I think river or coast would be better if Magic was rebooted. He said the connection between white and plains is the most tenuous to me. So, yeah, white is generally about cities and civilization.
Yeah.
So it's not really plains. So I don't know if he redone it, if it would be a cityscape. He said he wouldn't change it in another post that I didn't keep, but if he was forced to change it, that's the one he would change. So we're not actually forcing him, but there you go. Hi, Mark. Whether or not a set has a multicolored theme, it's more often than not that players will make multicolored decks for limited. I've noticed an increase, but why not print common dual lands for every set? His answer is actually really good. For limited, you really don't need common dual lands unless you want to support frequent 3-color play. Note that 2-color focused faction sets like Ravnica do heavily encourage a fair amount of 3-color play, especially in draft.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something that I used to always do and that I quit doing. And that's when a dual land was available, a common dual land, I'd try to pick 1 or 2 of them up if I was making a 2-color deck. You don't need them. If you're playing 2 colors, you're better off playing basics. They come in untapped.
Yep.
And that one dual land isn't going to make that big a difference.
No.
Not in my opinion.
No.
If you're playing 3 colors, then dual lands take on a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
And getting a couple that cross over in your colors can be a big deal.
When you start splashing something, it changes everything.
But for 2 colors, you don't need them. If you pick one up and you want to play it, I guess, but I'm not even sure you should just because you picked it up.
Right.
I don't think you gain from it.
None of the common dual lands have enough of another benefit to it.
Gain a life,
you
know, but you know, if you get it on first turn, it's not as big a drawback as long as you're not playing a bunch of 1-drops. And later on, it's just punishing because now I can't drop my 4-drop on turn 4 because I had to play a tap land. So, yeah. But anyway, that's why. On the heels of the historic question, where are legendary sorcery instants on the storm scale? He's going to call them an 8.
That makes me sad.
They were the one unpopular thing in Dominaria.
I didn't realize they were that unpopular. I guess they were confusing, or they were
Now, an 8 isn't impossible. That's just pretty high.
Yeah.
We've gotten 8s before. I believe Madness was an 8 before it got redone. So, 8s can happen, but, you know, just not as likely as like a 5 or a 4 or a 1, obviously.
I thought they were very cool and very flavorful, so I'd like to see some more. Maybe Commander products, maybe not standard, maybe. Maybe,
yeah. But that's what the this particular scale is all about.
That's true. That is true. Without all, just
we're going to talk about some other scales in a little bit. At the time that Black first started getting cards that could destroy Black creatures, was that considered to be a change in the color pie? It was.
Yeah.
And that's not been that many years ago. I got to looking at that just yesterday. And it's only been just a few years ago that started happening.
Right.
Up until then, Terror and Doomblade type effects were the norm.
Right. Well, I mean, like, before I quit playing at, like, Kamigawa, it was still all terror effects. We didn't even get Doomblade. You still couldn't touch artifact creatures even at that point. So it's very much a shift from what Magic originally was. Because Terror was the best removal spell in Magic, essentially. But you couldn't kill a black or an artifact creature with it. So I guess, Swords was always the best.
Yeah, Swords is
Swords,
better, Yeah, so we're old. Okay, is batching less easy to use than expected? And you guys know what batching is. They use that in Dominaria.
Yeah, historic being artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. That's batching.
Yeah. We haven't seen it again and all. Also, do you expect instant and sorcery will ever be batched together? Incantation being the only word I can think of for that. Huh. He says we've had a few other batches in Vision design, but so far none have made it to print. He does like the mechanic. I remember talking about it pretty extensively. I think we will see it again. It's just that we're not going to see it every set.
Right. I think we'll probably see historic come back. We might see historic come back before we see a different set of batching because there's only so many. Well, if you're batching with types,
I don't know.
That's true. I
don't know, man. Second guessing what they do at WotC is really hard. All right. We all like to do it, but it's really hard. We're going to go on a rant here. Not a rant. We're going to go on a tear. That's a better way to put it.
That's a tear, yeah.
Will there ever be more cards that return cards from exile? Oh, this isn't the tear.
No.
There's only a couple of these. He says, I'm trying my best to stop them. So there's a follow-up question a little later on. Haldan and Peiko would seem to indicate bringing back cards from that other cards exiled is okay as long as there's some way to mark them, i.e. counters. Could we see more designs like that in the future? And he says, we let cards get back things that they've exiled.
Right.
You just have to think of Haldan and Peiko as linked to card design. One of them exiles it, the other brings it back. That's in the new Commander product.
Yeah.
Which we don't get till next week, but we've all seen the spoilers.
Right.
So, but he's talked a little bit about in the past the Eldrazi processors. Mm-hmm. He thought that was okay. I've heard him actually go. He's not sure about it after the fact, but when a processor does something with exiled, it's your opponent's exiled.
Right.
So you're not reusing your own stuff really. So that's a little different. Oh, we do have one more on this.
Yeah, we go on about the exile zone just a touch more.
Would have been a good option to have a temporary zone different from exile. Leaving exile is gone forever, and this temporary zone, as it can come back. I think we'd call that the graveyard. It's not what he says, but I think we'd call that the graveyard.
Right.
He says, or we could just respect that that's what the exile zone is.
Yeah.
Making a new zone won't stop the problem if we don't respect that we have to stop bringing things back from it, with the exception of cards using it as a holding zone, like O-Ring.
O-Ring,
And, Haldan and Peiko also do
it's
that.
A very popular thing.
Peiko.
Very popular thing to be able to exile and bring one of those cards back.
So we do have a couple cards that got made back in the day before stuff got nailed down.
Right.
I mean, I like to play Rift Sweeper, and then there's... Pull from Eternity. So they're all kind of limited stuff. Rift Sweeper lets you shuffle it back in. Pull from Eternity only gets like a instant or sorcery or something like that. Yeah. So there's a few. All right. There are rumors floating around online that Ixalan Block was the final nail in the coffin for Standard's previously lower power level. Can you confirm or deny this, even if only partially? Well, we talked about it in last episode. But R&D made a conscious decision last year to raise the power level of Standard legal sets, which has declined over a number of years. This is the part we didn't get last week.
Right.
It was the result of player feedback on all our Standard legal sets. So they actually were getting feedback that Standard wasn't powerful enough.
Right.
And they acted upon it. Right. So we talked a little bit about last week. If you missed it, shame on you. Go watch last week.
Right. It's available. It is there.
It's out there. I'm sorry that the white color conversation has once again come up. To nip it in the bud, hopefully. I think people are asking, please, can white do this thing? I think it's in flavor for white. I don't think people that's not what white does. It's not flavorful? Does it undermine a weakness? So the issue is flavor is very versatile.
Yeah,
you can flavor almost any card to fill in flavors so that... Why, here's a good flavor for it. isn't a good argument for doing something currently out of color pie.
Right. You can flavor anything to anything if you.
Yeah, you can look at every break that's ever been made. Beast Within, cool name.
Yeah.
But it does stuff that green shouldn't do. I love green, but it does stuff that green shouldn't do. Green shouldn't be able to destroy a creature just at an instant speed.
Right.
And, yeah, so, but you can flavor it. Sounds cool. Beast Within, and yeah. Mark, recent sets made me feel that white is slowly becoming more actively a secondary color in land tutoring or putting lands onto the battlefield from someplace. Now, as an aside here, I've always thought that white was secondary in this.
Yeah, nobody else really does that much.
There are a few cards. When I build commander decks, I looked for them. It already had some cards, but in a short time span, it got Flower, Birth of Meletus, Cartographer's Hawk, and Verge Rangers. Is it something we may expect to continue seeing this frequently? He says, we recognize white needs to be able to make land drops in Commander, so we're finding in-color ways to do that. And it already had those ways.
Right.
It just didn't have
ton
of them, but it had more
critical mass.
It had more than anybody else.
Yeah.
It had more than black, blue, and red combined.
Right.
So,
just didn't have a critical mass of them, but I mean, the original Land Tax. Land Tax is the original, just still the best card at doing this, and it's in...
Oh, man. In Commander, it's 1 of 100 cards, but if you can land that on turn 1...
Turn 1 Land Tax makes you feel
as long as you're not going first.
Right.
It's a very feel bad if you're going first.
I've actually got lucky enough once to, first turn Land Tax when I did go first, the next turn bounce land.
Oh.
So I'm like, set myself back, and we're on the road.
Because you have to hope that there's a green player who ramps like turn 2 or 3,
yeah.
And then you're golden. But otherwise, ooh. All right, so now is when we're going.
Now is our tear, our rant.
We've got. Well, it's not a rant, but we got some things that got discussed a lot this week.
Yeah.
So we're gonna run through them and throw in our thoughts along with them. Can you give an example of what you would consider to be mistakes made by Vision Design?
He does a good job of actually just laying them out here.
Yeah, a lot of these are technically early design as they predate Vision Design. That's only come about in the last couple of years.
Yeah, 2 years or something.
Free spells in Odyssey being too spiky. Okay?
Yeah.
Those are just too good. Kamigawa block making all rare creatures legendary.
Yeah.
Every rare creature Kamigawa is legendary.
Legendary.
Now, in today's world, we all look at it, Commander players, and go, neat.
Yeah.
At the time, it was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Lorwyn being race tribal and Morningtide being class tribal. That didn't mix well.
Right. Then, the rest of that block.
Shadowmoor shifting tribal colors. Eventide shifting to enemy hybrid. So none of those things really match together super well.
Right. Especially to all be the same block.
Yeah.
Those 4, just bam, bam, bam.
Battle for Zendikar focusing too much on the war.
Yeah.
Kaladesh not removing opponent's energy.
Yeah.
Amonkhet being overstuffed. And Ixalan not having tribal glue.
Changeling.
Something that tied the tribes together. So those are mistakes. So going along with that theme a little bit, you're going to see where we hit pretty hard here in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised you think Kamigawa was mostly poor ideas. I feel like it's been piecemeal vindicated over time as its mechanics and themes are brought back with slight tweaks. Dominaria showed that a legend-focused set was a cool idea.
That's true.
Remember, this is post-Commander.
Yes.
Innistrad, the fun of cards that could transform.
Yeah.
Channel was narrowed for Blood Rush, etc. I obviously don't have access to the market research you do, but it's always seemed to me that the set's biggest weakness was its comparative power level in Standard. So the response is, a legendary focus was a bad idea at the time. We now live in a time where Commander is popular, and there's an upside for legendary. Odyssey had done Threshold years before, so 2-stage cards had already been done. Channel was a bit overly broad, but I'll agree it played well.
Yeah.
A Japanese top-down design was probably the coolest idea, but the choice to design the creative first and then design the mechanics afterwards was horribly flawed. Mm-hmm. We're going to build on that a little bit. The choice to design the creative first and then design the mechanics afterwards was horribly flawed. Isn't that how every top-down set is designed? Now, if we haven't talked before, there's two ways they design sets. Top-down, bottom-up. I believe that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Top-down, they decide on the world and its flavor and then design mechanics to fit those.
Right.
Bottom-up, they come up with a set of mechanics that they like and then build flavor around that.
Right.
I believe that's a general breakdown.
Like in recent years, I guess Amonkhet is one of our last big just top-down. It was Egyptian world. We're going to have pyramids, we're going to have mummies, we're going to have, and then they built everything.
I think most of the sets nowadays are top-down, although Ikoria was built around monsters, which I think was not the flavor of the set so much as we're going to have mechanics.
Right. I
don't know how I would put it, but
I think it's maybe more of a bottom-up. They came up with the mutate, we want big monsters, how do we make a world
we know
with
we
big
want monsters, and then right. So anyway, no, the two work in conjunction. Probably the biggest impact of Kamigawa block on Magic is it became a beacon of how not to do top-down design.
Yeah.
How not to do it. The Kamigawa discourse has made me curious. Are there any Magic sets you think were ahead of their time? We're going to get back to this in a little bit, but we're going to name them off. Antiquities, Fallen Empires, Alliances, Tempest, Unglued, Invasion, Onslaught, Ravnica, Zendikar, Innistrad, Khans of Tarkir, Dominaria, War of the Spark, and possibly Ikoria. So I'm throwing that in there. We're going to come back and feed off that in just a little bit. Right now we're continuing with the Kamigawa stuff. Do you truly consider Champions of Kamigawa to have been a mistake? With all the tweaks to its mechanics that have come out since then, it feels to me like Champions issues were more along the lines of half being ahead of its time and half needing a bit more time in development or play design for fine-tuning. Would it be fair to say that if a finished Champions were to be handed over to a current-day Vision design team, it would become something that live up to today's standards? I consider Champions of Kamigawa block to be the worst design block in the history of Magic. If I was forced to do Kamigawa, I would keep very few of the mechanics and start over.
I've heard him talk about Kamigawa a lot because people will ask, but I never just flat out heard him say that he actually considers it the worst design block in the history of the game.
In the history.
That's new to me, and that's great. I mean, I know there were plenty of problems, but
yeah, wow. It was not. It was not well received at the time. I remember just like, what is this? It didn't resonate. That's another thing to talk about. It didn't resonate, at least for us here in the States. It was designed for the Japanese, okay.
Right.
And it maybe resonated a little bit here. Here, it didn't resonate because we weren't familiar with all this terminology and all these things.
They went, I mean, people wanted a Japanese theme set, but they wanted more samurai and ninja, and they got more Oni and things like
lots
that.
Lots of spirits.
They got lots of more of the spirits. And
it just didn't resonate. That's why they do so much research now, and another reason why we talked a week or two ago about skeletons being taboo in China.
Yeah.
We don't get skeletons because they're taboo there. A lot of magic gets sold there.
It's very rare.
And they don't resonate there, so you don't put skeletons in for the most part.
Yeah, we don't. We get them very rarely now. Huh?
So let's talk about this being ahead of the time stuff.
Yeah.
Let's go into that a little bit, because that was pretty cool, right?
I love that list, too.
So, unsets being ahead of their time, is that not part of the charm and goal of Silver Bordered? To do things that normal Magic can't do today, but might do tomorrow? To a certain extent, yes. Unglued was even more so than average unset. For example, both full art lands and tokens came from Unglued.
Yeah.
That's where they tried them out, because they didn't know if they'd work, and they did, and they were successful. Hey, Mark, love your blog, love your attitude, be safe. I'm curious about how Fallen Empires was ahead of its time. Was it the use of counters on permanents? It was partly how it used counters, and partly that it was the first set to do factions. Which is weird, because Antiquities with the Brothers' War, you would think there'd been factions, but no, not really.
Not really.
Not really, no. But, so yeah, Fallen Empire is another poorly received set for lots of reasons.
Yeah. Because
I remember having my box ordered.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I can't ever remember if it was Homelands or Fallen Empires, but I remember I had a chore one time of opening and sorting like 2 boxes of either Fallen Empires or Homelands for you on like a Saturday morning while you slept in. And that was boring. I'll tell you, because it's just not even good cards. Like,
yeah. Yep.
There's only like 80 cards in the set or something, isn't it? I've seen this a lot.
Oh, no. That's when we had commons that had 4 pictures. All right. So I'm a little confused. What do you mean when you say a set is ahead of its time? Do you mean people didn't like it right away, but it grew on them? No, I mean it explored mechanical or design elements that would go on to be a major component in later Magic.
Yeah. And that list that he gave... It is. I mean, got Antiquity.
We're gonna hit a couple up. Well, we got what, one more?
Yeah.
You listed Ikoria as a set that was possibly ahead of its time. What aspect of it do you think is ahead of its time? The entire set is an experiment on the complexity ceiling of a standard legal set.
Yeah.
It's also messing around with new design technology with mutate, companions, and keyword counters.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about companions in a little bit.
Yeah. Yay.
But, yeah, the list is pretty good. I was thinking there was one where he talked about that, but maybe there's not. So we can go back and hit on that, and we can probably come up with it, right?
Yeah. I mean, the list he's got there, Antiquities, where we really start seeing...
Lots of artifacts.
You see artifacts for what they became.
Because artifacts were not that big a thing in Alpha. There were some, but...
I mean, our Soul Ring and our Mox and our Lotus, we had powerful ones, but, you know...
Fallen Empires, he explained.
Alliances, that's when we got some of our first free spells, our Force of Will.
We got some free spells.
Yeah, we got our Force of Will. It's also the set that saved the game. I mean, if you ever hear him talk about it, things were bad when Alliances came out.
Well, yeah, we had... I don't know.
There wasn't like a set for like a year or something before it hit.
Well, we'd had Fallen Empires and Ice Age, and I don't remember if Homelands came out before Alliances or not.
I think so.
But anyway... Yeah. Tempest, Invasion. Invasion was a multicolored.
Our first.
They were messing with multicolored.
Yeah, we had multicolored. I guess Legends is really like the first gold set, but
Ravnica brought us the guilds.
Yeah.
Which people love.
Onslaught was our first graveyard set. Was that Onslaught or Onslaught?
Zendikar. They brought fetches back.
Right.
You know, Innistrad was probably the best top-down design they've ever built.
The Adventure World.
No, Innistrad's not Adventure.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Innistrad. You moved on past it.
Yeah, Innistrad.
Innistrad, is the best top-down they've ever done.
So they hit all the tropes of the horror and everything. So, anyway, yeah. So there's a bunch of those. Maybe next week I'll have more. They'll talk more about it. Right. This happened a few days ago. So... from a mechanical or flavor standpoint, I don't get why blue gets to prevent people from drawing. It's already the best color at drawing cards, and it just so happens there's a color that is not good at drawing, and it's supposed to be the number one at rule setting, white. Flavorfully, I don't get why blue would prevent knowledge from spreading. That seems like something white or black would do. He said there's a fine argument that white should do card draw prevention.
I think that would be good for white.
But if we remember back when he just said a while ago, you can justify anything with flavor.
Yeah, it's true.
So, but I'd have to agree there.
I think that it fits white. If you're not going to let them be able to draw the cards, let them be able to stop people from drawing cards. If I can't have card advantage, neither can you.
All right, this is just a nice little exercise here. So
I've been trying to think if I can...
If Star Wars can get a holiday based on a bad pun, you know, may the fourth be with you. Unless you're from the other side. Revenge of this.
Sixth.
What day should be a magic holiday based on a bad pun? Curious what you or the community can come up with. I did not look at the replies on this one, and I should have to see if there was some. Maybe I'll try to do that.
I've been trying to think of some myself, and I haven't come up with anything great. Sadly.
I did not try to come up with one. I'm historically bad at not being able to just think up something. I've either got it on the spot or I'm just hopelessly not going to get it.
Fair.
I mean, I'm pretty good in conversation, but
right.
I'm not a joke writer, I'm no Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes, you're certainly not, sir.
But I digress. And if you're an old comic book fan, you might know that's a Peter David column from a Comic Buyer's Guide, which is a now defunct magazine long time ago. So anyway, but I digress. I also watched a little bit of Jeff Dunham Facebook live stream where he's showing a new dummy he's making. Hasn't even named it yet. But it's a troll. It's an internet troll. And he's got lips and a face. He's got movements for the eyes, the eyebrows. And it's got a phone in its hand, and it goes... Doesn't have a name for him yet.
No name for him yet?
No, he was asking the audience and stuff for suggestions. I kind of like Tex.
Tex. That's pretty good.
Tex is pretty good. So we'll see. That's down the pipe a ways, but he's making a new one. So if you like Jeff Dunham, and who doesn't, that's coming at some point. We'll get a new Jeff Dunham with
Tex.
The internet troll. Well, no, we don't know what his name is. The internet troll. So anyway, so I don't know what a good pun would be.
I don't know.
To get back on track here.
Yeah, I don't know.
To get out of the weeds and back on the road and driving straight, sort of. Ish, yeah. I don't know. We'll have to think on that.
I've been thinking.
Can you come up with something?
Let us know if
you're part of the internet. Come up with something.
Yeah.
All right. Today you talked about Blue getting a new keyword, and you need to read Making Magic if you don't, but he did in his article, called Resistance. And I was curious if White could get this. White is naturally a defensive color, and taxing is something that's part of its ability set. It's also a creature-centric color, but only way creatures naturally can protect themselves is indestructible, which is most limited to higher rarities, so it could use another way to help keep its creatures around. He goes, it's in flavor for White. The issue with blue is blue's the color that most needs creature keywords as it has the least. But it's supposed to have the fewest creatures, so it needs the fewest keywords. I believe Resistance is they were wanting to do an ability where it costs you 2 more to target a creature that had resistance. Gotcha. Sorry, I should explain that. If I remember right from reading Making Magic this week, that's what the ability was. So you would pay 2 more to target a creature that had resistance. So I think we'll probably see that in the future.
I think so. That seems...
They've done stuff similar to that.
Yeah.
On independent creatures here and there. So I could see us getting that.
Yeah, it's never been keyworded though.
Right. But I don't think blue needs more creature keywords. It's supposed to be the creature. It's supposed to have the fewest creatures.
Yeah, it's got flying and hexproof are the 2 it gets the most, really. And flash. Flying, hexproof, flash. The annoying ones.
All right. It is disappointing that cards like Fires of Invention and Wilderness Reclamation have been cornerstones of Standard since entering and have kept their dominance over many of the newer cards in sets.
Is it?
Is it disappointing?
You said it is disappointing.
Oh, is it disappointing? He says no. Having to make sets where no card can stay relevant for its entire time in Standard would probably be impossible.
Probably. And then we would never remember a good set. If their cards don't stay relevant in Standard, that's how you remember those great sets. I mean, those cards were relevant until rotation.
Now, on a related note, I skimmed an article by Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, this week, talking about, or maybe it was last week, talking about fast mana in Standard and how it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
And he referred to both of these cards as fast mana.
Right.
I don't know if that they're fast, but they are breaking the mana curve pretty consistently.
Pretty consistently, yeah.
So, and that's maybe something they should be looking at, because they know that free spells, we talked about it a while ago, were a problem.
Yeah, they don't want to give us free spells, but have all the mana you want.
But they keep giving us free spells, and they keep giving us all this mana so we can cast any spell we want. That raises the power level.
It really does.
And that's what we want.
Hence why, Nissa has been getting the most play of any card in Standard for so long. I mean, double your mana sounds good.
It's like they say, you want an exciting set to play, and if a card's too busted, you ban it. You go on. So that's what they're doing. Moving along. Was a soul bond variant ever considered for Ikoria where a human could bond with a non-human or vice versa to give the paired creatures a benefit? Follow-up, where is soul bond on the storm scale?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
No, and soul bond is an 8. It both confused players and wasn't all that well liked. I assume those two things are correlated.
Probably.
Soul bond was a creature with soul bond when it entered the battlefield. You could soul bond it with another creature, and then they shared an ability that the soul bond creature gave.
Right.
And then if that creature you were soul bonded with died, you could have a new creature that entered soul bonded with it. It was kind of an interesting ability. I don't see it pop up in Commander that often.
The only card, the reason I know about Soulbond, because I wasn't playing when it came out, is a Commander card, though. Deadeye Navigator.
Yeah, that's the one.
Blank, 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 blank.
Break. And we just don't, in our local community, we just don't have a lot of people that are trying to just break stuff. We have one group, but they kind of stay to themselves.
Right.
Thanks, guys. Shout out to you. You know who you are. Thanks for buying that foil Jinkataxis. Nobody in here wanted it. That card is no bueno. All right, so next up. As the main source of communication with the community, you've presumably had to stand by decisions made by WotC that you don't necessarily agree with. Other than the obvious, and that's 2 words, sounds like preserved fist. Are there any choices, former or otherwise, that have been made that you disagree with that you feel comfortable talking about? You guys get preserved fist rhymes with reserved list.
Yeah.
All right.
Reserved fist. That's good.
I don't know if you meant. I think you meant to write it this way. I would have made Hound Dog years ago. I don't think he's talking about the Elvis Presley song. I don't think he would have sung that. But we don't have dogs in Magic. We have hounds. And he makes this argument all the time if you get to reading Blogatog. It should be dog. Not hound. Hounds are dogs. Dogs. All hounds are dogs. But all dogs are hounds.
Yeah.
So he didn't say anything about the preserved fist.
So wait. Mowu's a hound? I haven't ever looked. Huh. Because that's not a hound.
In Magic, he is.
Mawu kind of.
You have cats and hounds.
Mawu kind of looks like a Pomeranian on steroids or something. That's not a hound.
I'm just telling you.
Huh. Alrighty then.
Okay, so why is it... Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of things I don't know that we've talked about before. Besides the storm scale for how likely something is to be printed in Standard, we have a couple other scales. And we may mention another one, but I'm going to have to get more conversant with it.
Yeah.
The Rabia, I think it's Rabia scale.
Right.
That's how likely we are to return to a plane, a certain plane. And then we also have the Venser scale, and that's how likely a planeswalker is to come back.
Right.
Be printed in Standard again. That type of thing. Just to come back, I believe.
Right.
So why isn't Alara more higher of a chance to be seen again? Mechanically, it's all over the map. And creatively, we kind of took away the thing that defined it. The shards. They fixed that. It just needs a bunch of work. Note, a 5 isn't a bad score. So it's a 5 on the Rabia scale.
Okay. Yeah, 5's not bad.
It's not horrible. That's right in the middle. Can I get a maybe on an article with more in-depth and specific rubrics? I didn't look that up, but I assume that's not a misspelling.
Yeah.
For the Venser, Rabia, Beeble scales. Obviously, we can figure out that Jace, Liliana, Chandra won't always appear most likely in the next set, but it would be nice to get a more detailed explanation of what a 1 on each of those scales really indicates, along with 2 to wherever it merges with the storm scale. He referenced an article that he wrote on the Rabia scale.
Yeah.
And the Venser scale and the Beeble scales don't have articles yet.
Right.
But he did reference it, so you can look up Making Magic. You can do a Google search. Just use a little Google foo. You can get there.
As he said, we're not as conversant with it, but we believe the Beeble scale is how likely a creature type is to return.
Yeah, an unsupported creature type.
Right.
Beebles are no longer supported.
Beebles are squirrels, too silly for Magic.
Too silly. Squirrels just got returned, so they hopefully got better on the Beeble scale.
Beebles are, if you don't know what a Beeble is, they're kind of like the Tribbles of Magic. They're not furry, but they're little and there's a lot of them.
They bobble, but they don't fall down.
There you go.
If you know what Weebles are, you're old. I don't think they've made those in 30 or 40 years, have they? Weebles wobble.
They made them when I was a kid.
Yeah, you're 30.
All right, so let's move on.
Yeah. About the Arabia scale, how do you measure the popularity of a plane? In the case of Kamigawa, for example, how it was received back in the day doesn't necessarily mean much because the vast majority of current players weren't even playing back then. Do you regularly do new polls to update these scores?
They do. I've taken one before.
We do new polls asking about old worlds. In general, there's a strong correlation between players liking the world and the sets that take place in that world. So, I mean, if we're going to say that the data was relevant then, we kind of have to say the data is relevant now, too.
Right.
You can't just say, well, just because it sucked then, it'll be okay now.
Right.
That's a hard sell. You know, that's a really hard sell. Let's see. Where did I...
Data crunch there on the pink.
Oh, yep. We will have a lot of data to crunch. No. Wait, is that... No.
Oh, did we already do that?
No. We skipped this one.
Oh,
man. I skipped some stuff. Where are we at?
No. We just skipped that and that. Which
All right.
was related with our...
My bad. So is anyone an 8 on the Venser scale? And he says that Estrid's probably an 8. We're in the green right now.
Yeah.
So I just missed that one.
Yeah.
Okay. What would happen in order for you to realize that Companion was a mistake? Now, I know we've talked about this
I'm a little
for
tired.
like the last 3 episodes. But he says we will have a lot of data to crunch. Note that a card or mechanic can be disruptive in competitive play, but be loved and played a lot in casual play.
Yeah.
The power level might be an error, but it doesn't necessarily make the card or mechanic a mistake.
Nope.
And as he often says, they only play test for standard.
Right.
In the older formats, they have banned and restricted lists to take power levels and adjust it.
I think they've said with play design they may do some limited testing for maybe Pioneer or Modern now, but they don't go further than that. I think
and they've been ramping up the power level in
Right.
standard anyway, so if they need to ban a companion. We will have a lot of data to crunch. Note that a card mechanic can be disruptive in competitive play, but be loved and played a lot in casual play. For a set aimed at standard, such a mechanic evidently qualifies as a mistake. Monarch is a great casual mechanic, but in Legacy, where it's hard to remove the monarchy, it's free white card draw.
Oh, cool.
Well, monarchy's in all the colors, but okay.
Right.
You still seem to focus too much on playtesting mechanics as intended, not how they'll be used in competitive settings. Exhibit A, true name Nemesis.
Good point.
We do not have the resources to test every format. We test cards primarily for the lowest powered and most sanctioned formats, standard, sealed, and booster draft, and use other tools to balance older formats if cards cause issues. Note, we do not test for formats if the set is aimed for the format, with things like Commander products and Modern Horizons.
Right.
So they do test for those. But we have tools to balance older formats, banned, restricted.
Yep.
So that's what they do. They ban, restrict stuff if it's too powerful.
Yep.
It's out there. So what if there's 30 cards you can't play out of 20,000?
Yeah, there's over 20,000 cards. If they had to play test everything through all the formats, we'd get a set every other year or something, you know.
Hey Mark, did design and development know how much Companions would change the way Magic plays? And if so, why wasn't this articulated better ahead of release? With the recent history of mistakes and bannings, it's hard to give the team the benefit of the doubt if this was a calculated risk. We only release something if we think it will be enjoyed by the players.
That's a good
And
policy.
you know what? I hear people are enjoying it. I haven't played with them yet, but I hear people are enjoying the hell out of it. Now, competitive players, that's going to be a different thing.
Yep.
You do realize that competitive players make up a tiny little percentage of all Magic players.
Yeah.
A tiny, infinitesimal little number of Magic players. Most of us play kitchen table, commander, casual, draft a little bit, do this or that. We're not there trying to make a living and beat everybody's head in with Luris or whatever. You know? Right. We're just not doing that. So, back on track maybe?
Back on track.
I'm starting to see several social media posts asking what we think of Ikoria, but the release date is May 15th.
Next Friday.
Still several days away. I have not got my pre-ordered product yet. Are these digital-only questions? We previewed the cards a month ago. I understand that some of you, sadly, haven't gotten a chance to play yet, but the cards are known. I know what the cards are, but I don't know how they interact together. Not on a personal level, so I wouldn't feel comfortable filling one out.
Right.
Personally speaking, I won't fill one out on Ikoria unless I can fill it out, 2 or 3 weeks from now after I've had a chance to play some.
Yeah. Get the cards in your hands and play them.
Yeah, that's just me. Somebody asking, what ways are Magic fans better and worse than fans of other games like baseball, poker, Catan, chess?
I love the smattering there.
Yeah.
Baseball, poker, Catan, chess.
There's a sport, a gambling thing, a board game, and one of the oldest games on the planet.
Yeah.
They are better in that they play Magic, thus helping feed my family.
I can agree with that.
And mine.
Yeah.
They are worse in that the fans of the other games never send me mean letters. I would also say that, on the average...
Oh, look. Where are you diving in here?
Fans of these other games are not as engaged.
Well, maybe... with 3 of them, there's a reason. I say baseball, maybe they can be, because baseball and Magic are the only 2 that change. Poker is still poker. Different people are playing it, maybe at different places, but poker is still poker. Catan is still Catan. Chess is still chess.
I'm not saying that people don't get engaged with them, but let's take Catan. I don't know of any weekly Catan podcasts. There might be one. I just don't know of any.
Right.
Chess. I mean, I know there are people that still talk about chess strategy, but
right.
I don't think there's a lot of mystery there.
Right.
Poker. People like to watch Texas Hold'em. That got popular in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's become a thing, but if you're not out there gambling, you have a home game once in a while. I mean, we play at the house once in a while, but we're not engaged in it. Baseball comes closest.
Yeah.
It's got a long season normally.
Long season.
And so you can
lots of teams,
track
lots
the
of
stats.
games,
You can have your favorite team to root for. I don't have a favorite Catan player. To root for.
Magic players love their math and their stats on things, and you get like our Karsten, who's breaking down stuff, man, but they got nothing on baseball fans. Sabermetrics, the creation of stats.
All these have stats but Catan. Now, somebody's going to send me a letter about Catan statisticians. Let me know how often you should give wood for sheep.
Yeah.
Just let me know how often you should do that, I guess. I don't know. That's an old joke, but we're old, so we went there. All right. Were any of the cards that got a Godzilla treatment designed with that in mind? No. The deal with Toho happened after the set was already designed. So those creatures that have 2 names that turn into Godzillas and Mothra and so forth, they just took existing cards and used them. They didn't design them. They didn't backwards design. They just took stuff.
When I read that, made me understand more. I'm going to assume that the buy-a-box for the set was normally just a Zalartha Strength Incarnate that doesn't exist in the set.
Doesn't exist.
But then they're like, oh, we'll make it a Godzilla, King of Monsters. We'll still put the little nameplate on there, right? Because it was going to be our buy-a-box. But because I was just like, there's a Godzilla card that you can't get the normal version of.
There you go. All right, I've been out of the Magic story/lore loop for a while now. That's saying it mildly. Mostly since the conclusion of the Weatherlight saga. Whew, that is a long time ago. And I'd like to commend you for your great work on that. Is there any chance that we might see the Phyrexians out as the big bads again? Especially since Karn is still kicking and Nicol Bolas, from what I've been told, is less of a factor. The Phyrexians. I can suggest it to the right people. Man, if we don't get Phyrexians next year, I don't know. I watch a podcast where they do pie bets. I would do a pie bet on that. We've got to be getting Phyrexians soon. It's way out there.
When we still
they've held off this long, I don't know.
When we still had story to Magic and stuff, when we had Dominaria, which was a fun story, it was a lot of episodic stuff, but the whole thing with Karn, they convinced Karn to help them go fight Nicol Bolas, but Karn is still, we got to get rid of the Phyrexians. That's all Karn's thinking about. They find Karn and Dominaria digging up a bomb to kill Phyrexians with. And it's like, that's just a story thread just hanging out there.
I hope the story comes back a little harder than it is now. I am very disappointed in the way they went with the story.
Yeah.
Very disappointed. I think a lot of people are, because I don't know what the story is. You know what the story is?
No, I have no idea.
Ikoria is like monsters. Humans can bond with a monster, and I don't know what else is going on there.
Vivian's there because she likes monsters. There's some new guy. And Narset because they wanted...
We don't know. Why do we care?
Yeah.
Make us care, Watsy. Make us care. I want to care again.
Yeah.
I want to care again. I spent a lot of years not really following it and not caring, but once I started caring, I wanted to care, and now...
You don't let me care. Ikoria seems like... I'd really love a story for Ikoria because it's a new, cool plane with all these monsters, and I know these humans and monsters bond, but I don't know any... That's about all I know.
We got like 22 or however many, 28 little snippets or something, and then you can buy a book, which gives you a little bit if you get the book. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm hopefully they're going to bounce back to the old way. I'm going to leave you with one last one that was really good. It's really short. It's really sweet.
Put a smile on my face when I read this.
Yep. Pick your evil. Another Homelands or another Urza's Saga. Hands down, Urza's Saga. Fixing power level is way easier than fixing something being boring. And he hits the nail on the head. Yep. Homelands was boring. And Urza's Saga, is that the one where they all got marched in and set down and threatened to be fired all of R&D?
Because they broke the game.
They broke the game.
Once again, we talked a little bit about alliances. We saw some of our first free spells with stuff like Force of Will, but no. Urza's free spells. You had to pay for them, but then you untapped all your lands. But then they gave us a whole bunch of ways for lands to make it more than one mana. Surely nothing will go wrong.
What could happen? Anyway, I believe that's all we've got.
That is
Appreciate y'all tuning in. And we'll see you next week. We're going to bust one out next week. We got multiple shows to do next week.
Yeah, we got
box breaks and stuff.
Ikoria will finally we'll hold cards in our hand.
Physical cards. I got promos in yesterday.
You've touched cards. Oh.
I've touched Godzilla. I've touched Godzilla.
Oh, no.
All right. Anyway, we'll see y'all later. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.